Well, I think you asked Peter Burling, you know what, a relationship with an arch rival, let's face it, you can like each other maybe a little bit off the water, but on the water, not a chance.
Sweden with port entry then for this first race of the day. Nathan Artemis has proved himself quite adept at manipulating these situations in the entry box. Perhaps he feels there's a little vulnerability there with his great rival, Peter Burling. Let's have a word with Joey Newton, who is out on the water for us today, part of Oracle Team USA. Joey, as ever, great to have you with us. Your thoughts as the Challenger Playoffs final gets underway?
Yeah, hi, Ali. Look, today should be a great race, and it may very well be decided by what these teams put in the boats at 8 o'clock this morning. Artemis have gone for their light air boards. Team New Zealand are sort of more medium to heavy air boards, so the race could very well be decided how much wind there is and which boards they've got in.
Well, we will discuss that in greater depth a little later on, perhaps as the race is underway. We begin to see the effects of the choice of equipment.
It's a lot lighter air than was originally expected, I think, and that's because several rain squalls have come through the area and really knocked that nice little breeze we had this morning down.
So here we go then, the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger Playoffs Finals underway. First to 5 race wins becomes the challenger. Make or break now for these two. Ken, are they playing safe in the pre-start, or is one team rolling the dice?
Well, we're already seeing kind of some action that we haven't seen before. It's light air out there. It's only 8.5 knots of breeze, which is barely foiling conditions with your big boards in. It'll be fascinating to see, as Joey reported, if Emirates Team New Zealand, their aggressiveness based on their stability in light air with those big long boards, if that's negated by this choice. I think these guys are both a little late in the lighter air right now and just kind of legging it back to the starting line right now.
So the chase on to the start line. Nathan Artemis will be much the happier at this point over his positioning. We've seen the Kiwis, though, with excellent performances in light air here in Bermuda. But as they head off to the start line, it is Sweden who are getting a really good, clean start. And already at 25 knots, safely up onto the foils and screaming away towards that first mark.
It's very early to say. Obviously, we have a 3-race day, but whether the light air foils versus the heavy air foils played a part in that pre-start. Certainly Sweden, with port tack entry in the pre-start, they came in from the left-hand side of the starting line. They got to pick and choose the time that they wanted to go back toward the line far more effectively than Emirates Team New Zealand. Therefore, we've got a good little lead coming into Mark 1.
So the wind speed may only be 8 or 9 knots, but as we've seen, these boats well capable of moving at speeds of 4 times the wind speed. And round the first mark go Artemis Racing, the Swedish team here in Bermuda, setting the pace in the early exchanges as Emirates Team New Zealand follow them around the mark.
It's amazing how much the good old-fashioned weatherman comes into play on a day like today. As Joey Newton reported, for those of us who just joining the America's Cup in this new crazy version of the America's Cup, you can have 2 different types of dagger boards. And those dagger boards, think of the lift on a plane. If you're trying to lift a plane off the tarmac at lower speeds, you would have longer wings. Well, same thing with these guys. If they're trying to lift these boats out of the water, which is so crucial at lower speeds, lighter wind conditions, you want your big wings on. Artemis has them in today. Team New Zealand doesn't.
So let's get an idea from Joey Newton exactly how late you can leave that decision. Joey, what's the protocol here? Because you may be having to make decisions at, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning for wind conditions that are very different come 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's right, Ali. You can't just snap your fingers and change the boards in a matter of minutes in these boats. There's quite a bit of work to be done. So these guys are making the decision. They'll start talking around 7:30 in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning, they'll have a tentative decision. The boats go in the water around 10, so everything pretty much needs to be decided by 9. So you have to have a huge amount of faith in your weather team to get these calls right, so you can put the right boards in the boat for the day.
Let's look at the meteorologist, probably one of the key men in the camp.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And based on all of us talking about them right now, they're all looking for a raise as we speak.
Well, it's pretty tight out there. Not a whole lot to choose between them. And Emirates Team New Zealand making good progress in closing the gap.
We'll know a lot more about whether they think their foils are going to work in this lighter air or not based on some of their decisions. It's surprising they didn't do a jibe around to the other mark and do what's called a split going up. They decide to just follow in Artemis and let the chips kind of fall where they may. Let's see how our boats... These guys are also kind of feeling each other out right now. They've all made dramatic changes to their boats since they raced last. And let's see how fast we are compared to the other guy.
Watch your canopy. Going into good pressure here. They're going into good pressure.
So the Kiwis are tacking a little earlier than the Swedes here, just in an attempt to break the spell.
Nice and steady. We're happy here, mate.
Every manoeuvre inevitably involving a loss of boat speed for a moment or two.
Both boats splashing down after that tack. So especially for Emirates Team New Zealand, where we've seen them do those really radical course changes in the tacks and staying up on their foils. They didn't stay up on their foils in that tack. In fact, they were down in the water for quite a while. It's kind of surprising for an Emirates Team New Zealand, but it could be all because of these dagger boards.
We've still got 40 seconds to go this way, so always get it.
Facing up
20, 25.
Facing up a little here.
Yeah, pretty close to attack here, boys.
Number 12 displacement. Last pressure on.
Standing by.
Here's the tack from the Kiwis. Pretty slick.
Okay, that's more like what we've seen in the past, where they had the pace going into the attack and just that radical turn. Artemis will still cross, but as we always assumed, not by much.
Go forward. Nice the board stones.
So the Kiwis are beginning to pass. They have made excellent ground. That was a very tidy manoeuvre, a very clean, crisp tack, and it's put them marginally in front as they head towards the third gate.
We just saw the opposite of what we thought we would see. The boat with the light air boards, which is Artemis, definitely didn't tack quite as effectively, but now they're here's like classic match racing. It's called a pinching maneuver. Artemis is trying to get up underneath and actually give disturbed air to deflect off of their wing into Emirates Team New Zealand. They will be protected by the border here shortly. This is going to be a critical tack in this race. Who tacks the boat best coming up to this boundary? Pinching contest. I never thought you'd see that in a... And it's not the pinching that you think.
Well, they're almost close enough to get cozy and pinch each other. They're not too far away here. We're approaching crunch time as the boundary is hoving into view.
Artemis is allowed to tack as soon as they get within 3 boat lengths. Who can do a foiling tack right here? Better tack quick,
Swedes are leaving it late, too late. Inside the boundary they go, and that will incur a penalty. As a result, that is a major setback for Nathan Artemis and his crew, and the Kiwis are heading off out in front, having made a rather better fist of things.
Boundary, boys. Straight through for a right.
They've
goodness, an unforced error at exactly the wrong time. Listen, they had all the right in the world to tack whenever they wanted to, when they entered the 3 boat length zone within the boundary, and they still have their penalty. They have to drop back 2 full boat lengths.
It's been their Achilles heel here in Bermuda. The penalties that they've picked up have really cost them.
And they keep saying, let's keep it out of the umpire's hands. Let's just sail clean. And here they just made a silly mistake going into the boundary.
So round gate 3, downwind once more. And it is the turn of Artemis Racing, the Swedes, to do the chasing at this point. But that is a maneuver and a penalty up at the boundary, which has really cost them in terms of the distance that they've now got to cover. Good fly time. That's the amount of time that the 2 hulls are spending out of the water. And it goes without saying, the minimising of that time. Any time spent with those hulls touching the water and ploughing through it is not time that they want to be spending.
Emirates
200 metre lead now.
Yeah, Emirates to New Zealand had a much better jibe there. Even in this lighter air.
It feels like it's sucking as it's coming out of the water.
Whether light air or heavy air, it doesn't matter. These guys aren't trimming the sails. For those of you joining the America's Cup, really for the first time during this rendition, they're the power plant. They are pumping pressure into a hydraulic system which powers everything on the boat. All the sheets, the twist of the wing, the camber in the wing, the trim of the wing, and the dagger boards, the rudders, the fore and aft rake, the side-to-side rake. Really intricate hydraulic systems that work these boats. Without that hydraulic system, nothing works on the boat. So the human power is 100% mandatory all the time, and what a different way of managing that human power. These guys went for leg muscles, the other guys went for arm muscles.
And the debate is still raging as to which is the more efficient. Maybe we'll have some statistics in another little while to be able to analyse exactly the power output of each of the different boats and the different techniques, the cyclaws as they become known, or the traditional grinders. Kiwis certainly think that this cycling method has given them a little edge. It might only be one of several little edges, but certainly here they've been served well by it in Bermuda.
How cool is the choreography of the crew work as they come across the boat? We'll have to go back and look at that again. How and where each person positions themselves coming out of attack in lighter air versus breezier conditions.
Turning upwind once more, and again the boat handling is good from Peter Burling, Glenn Ashby. They're all in perfect unison, and Nathan Adridge being put under a degree of pressure here in the Swedish boat.
Attack going on Artemis, a different view than we've ever seen. And in a reasonably classic match racing move, Team New Zealand tacks to stick with them. Okay, watch this tack. There's Glenn Ashby, the wing trimmer. He goes across the boat to the other side and actually jumps in the helmsman's cockpit. Burling goes forward of the wing to keep his weight out of the back of the boat. There's Ashby right there. There's Ashby up in the up. I almost got him. I almost got him with my circle. I'm going to get him one of these days. There is Ashby in his cockpit, and just amazing choreography.
I love it when you use that machine, Kenny.
Well,
it's just quality entertainment.
I'm glad. That's what I'm here for you. I am.
I'm going to get you some colouring in pencils for your birthday.
Oh, dear me.
You can see the choreography of the Swedes now. Again, tight to the boundary, but safe enough this time around, although the maneuver doesn't look entirely as they'd like it.
You might be able to push through and go back more into more pressure. Okay? Go for the tack when you're ready. Push, boy. Anytime.
The gap closing. Swedes gaining.
So let's go back to Joey out on the water. And, you know, it's kind of interesting, Joey, talking about the light air boards versus the breezier boards. Sure still seems to me that Emirates Team New Zealand has a bit of an edge and it's staying up on the foils and the tacks. What does it look like from out there?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Ken. The manoeuvres just seem a little bit smoother and a bit more consistent. I think as if the patches of the course with the breeze is less, we've seen Artemis gaining, and they've got lighter air boards, they pop up earlier. But as the breeze builds, like this at the moment, Team New Zealand seem to have a little speed advantage. So smaller boards, less drag. When they're up in the air, they're going to go faster.
Two completely different setups, yet they're within about 100 meters. Boy, the Swedes don't mind going close to that left-hand boundary.
Have they gone that far in an attempt to try to make the gate in one?
Well, probably not. You can see from this graphic, I don't think they're going to, they have a chance of laying the gate right now. Maybe they likely think there's better pressure offshore right now. It's still very kind of cloudy, not quite as squally as it was earlier, but that means that there's very likely big puffs and lulls, wind pressure, the dark water on the water, the dark patches in the water is where you want to stick the nose of your boat.
Well, the Kiwis seem to be sticking the nose of their boat in the water currently as they contemplate this tack up to gate number 5. Hitherto, we've seen some pretty surgical manoeuvring from the Kiwis, but let's not forget what happened just a handful of days ago when it was suddenly turned upside down and there were sailors hanging from all parts. Their shore crew have had a very, very busy time of it, restoring it to its former glories. And it wouldn't be at all surprising if there was a little bit of instability still there, given the damage that was wrought on that boat.
Pretty early job.
Downwind for the final time in the race with the Kiwis out in front. Race 1 of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger Playoffs final. The Swedes with it all to do here.
The good thing for the Swedes is at least they'll be having a split up here. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Emirates Team New Zealand jibe fairly quickly and try to get over in the same water. They would give up a little bit of their lead, but let's get over and stay on the same side of the race course because it is kind of fluky breeze, kind of shifty. Let's try to eliminate options for Artemis Racing.
Nathan Outridge looking to chase down his old rival Peter Burling. They have met on countless different courses across the globe, and just one of the delicious little subplots of this particular contest between Sweden and New Zealand.
Yeah, good puff coming on here. Starting to feel it now. No worries on Layla either, so we're taking it down.
It's going to take something special from Artemis Racing now if they're to close the gap with this sort of distance in the race left. Just half a leg before the final blast reach to the finish. They're a perfect illustration of the two different grinding techniques.
It doesn't get much more different than that.
Andy.
Go about 10 over.
On the Kiwi boat, as a grinder, you really get to know the guy in front of you. Have you noticed that?
Maybe not the parts of them that you'd like, but...
Here comes the choreography again. Ashby driving the boat, coming out of the tacks and jibes. You see him right there in the cockpit, in the back of the boat. Right back there, Glenn Ashby. That's the wing trimmer who's driving the boat. Not a bad driver. Hops forward, burling in. perfect.
And all done with minimal chat. I mean, there really is very little conversation on that boat, and we've been watching them for a couple of weeks now. By contrast to the Swedes, they really don't interact a huge amount. It seems to be done mostly on telepathy. And they are through the final gate, and they are heading for the finish line. This has been a terrific display by the Kiwis.
Joey, if you're a Kiwi fan right now and you know they got their heavy airboards in, this is very optimistic, isn't it?
Yeah, Ken, I think this would be pretty encouraging for these guys. They've got a system on their boards where they change the tips. So even though these are their high-speed boards, they've got a longer set of tips on, which can increase the span a little bit. So they've more motored these boards down the range a little bit. It's obviously pretty effective. The breeze came up a little bit in that race, and the boat was just off.
There we go. I just pointed out, that's the length. That's that span that we've been talking about, which makes it a high-speed board versus a low-speed board. Beautiful views.
Well, they have executed almost to perfection here this afternoon on the Great Sounds, the New Zealanders. Such a contrast from the chaos and the turmoil of Tuesday, when their boat did not look at its best. But this is a team in perfect unison at the moment. Very calm, very relaxed, and safely in the knowledge that they've got this first race tucked away in the bag. Good boat speed all the way down the runway, and the Kiwis take a 1-0 lead in the playoffs final, overcoming something of a slow start, capitalising crucially on that Swedish penalty just before gate 3. New Zealand up in the final. Very accomplished. All done with the minimum of fuss.
Not a bad place to start. Zero celebration. They know they're in for the long haul here. Time to get back to the shore crew that are standing by. They will cover the boat with engineers and structural people and do a really good look-see through every single system on the boat and be ready for race number 2.
Well, we keep saying it, but it remains true. Small errors really are made to pay out there on the Great Sound, and that tack into the boundary was something that Nathan Outridge and the rest of his Swedish crew will look back on with some regret, you feel.